Welcome back, guys. We are going to continue the last video where we discussed about creating a login page which is connected to the login servlet. And from that login servlet, we have already received the data. We have used the get parameter method to get the data, and we have saved the data. And instead of verifying, we are actually directly sending that data to the success page showing welcome so and so email address. Okay, so that is not the right way of doing because we have not verified whether that user exists in our database or not, and that is the exact step that we are going to do in this video. Okay, so let us do that part. Yes, so this is where we have left off. We were printing this welcome message. Now let us continue. The next thing that we want to do is, currently we have this data. We have to send this data to our uh, another class called user. Okay, from here the second step is verification of data from the database. For that purpose, we need this another class called user DAO. What is the meaning of DAO? DAO means data access object. It is a short form for a type of an object that we are going to create, which will do only one task, and that task is connecting with the database and accessing the data and accordingly performing the tasks that we want it to perform. So like in this case, the method name is verify user. It has to do the verification of whether the received data, that is user ID and password, is available in the database or not. Okay, so let us do that. Let us create that class called user DAO. So right click on your project, go to new, and this time guys, this user DAO class is not a servlet class. Okay, it can be a separate class. So let me choose just class. Okay, and for this I'm going to provide this as the package called com.vikas.dao. Okay, and the class name is user DAO. Okay, DAO is just the one pronunciation that I am using to represent that this is DAO. Okay, user data access object. Okay, and in this user data access object class, what we are going to mainly do is provide that method verify user method to check if the user ID and password are, or let us say, exist in the database, user DB database. Okay, that is what we have to mainly check. For that, we are going to write this method that, as we discussed, is going to return boolean, and it is going to take two parameters. So let us write it public boolean verify user, and it is going to take wait, why string? Let us check the data type of the user ID once again. Okay guys, this is my workbench, and in this workbench what I am going to do is I'm using this user DB database which is already created, and I also have created a user table which is having this data. Let me once again run and show you. This is the data that is available in the in this user table. Okay, in this user ID, if you observe, these are 1 2 3 values. They are not strings, they are integer type. Okay, just for the confirmation, let me describe it. Describe user. Okay, and user ID is integer. Because it is integer, we are going to write our uh, data type also as integer. Okay, so here there are two ways guys. Now as a programmer, it is your choice to decide whether it is whether this verify user method is receiving string or integer, but you have to make sure that this ID value as integer has to be sent to the database. That is your responsibility. So let me show you two ways of doing it. One thing, you can give the parameter variables as string user ID and string password. I think I have just confused you. Sorry, my mistake, guys. Here, user ID is not representing the same user ID that you see in the database. In the database, we have user ID, which is representing the ID, unique ID for each user, which we will be using to perform the verifications. Okay, but the user ID that we are receiving from the data from the user is something else. The user ID that we are receiving from the user is this thing, user email. We have to verify the email address and password. So let me correct myself. Okay, so in the user DAO class, we will not be supplying the user ID, but rather you will be supplying the user email. Let me correct my image as well. Let me make a small correction here. We don't want user ID here, but rather we want it to be user email. Okay, so this was the mistake in the plan. Okay, so this is what we are going to do, user email and user password. And we know that email is a string value because in database it is varchar, and password is also varchar in database. So in Java we will represent both of them as strings. And so let me also correct this to user email, and let me use the same here in the comment. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. We are going to call this method user DAO class verify user method, and supply this information, user email and password, so that this internally goes to the database and verifies whether this data is available in the database or not, and accordingly return true or false uh, as a result. Okay, and also for this user DAO class, we are going to make this method as a static method. Why? Because I want to make this user DAO class and its respective methods to be used without the need of creating object for this class, because the very purpose of this class is to provide these methods which talk to the database and return some values. So there is no need to create objects of this particular class. Okay, so here we are going to do very first step as connect to database and get the data. Then we second step is uh, verify, uh, not verify as such. If the data is found, return true, else return false. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. So to do the connection with the database, we already know there are fixed steps here. Okay, the first step is to register your driver, register your JDBC driver. Okay, for that we will be writing class dot for name com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver. And how will you know if this particular path is correct or not? Okay, for that you just have to go to your project and verify that. Okay, but there is something very very important we are missing here. Why? What is that important missing thing? I told you in one of the earlier videos that under webinf folder you will see one folder called lib, and under this lib folder is where you have to place all the external libraries for our project to access the classes and interfaces from that library. Okay, and this package, guys, this package is not available in Java directly. This package is coming from a separate library called MySQL jar. or MySQL connector jar. Okay, it comes along with the MySQL installation. During the installation, you must have had it, but for some reason, if you don't have the connector jar, you can always download it. Okay, how to download it? Just go to Google and search for MySQL connector jar. Okay, it is showing this. Go to this link and it is showing go download page, and here, okay, this is downloading the installer. We don't want the installer. Let's go back. We need just the jar file. Let us go to this. Yeah, we just need this JDBC driver for MySQL connector J. Okay, this is the file we need, and so just you can click on this download and it will be downloaded. Okay, let us download this. Oh, it is again going into. If you have completed the installation of MySQL with full options, all selected options, then you will find that MySQL jar file in your C drive, in your program files x86 folder, in MySQL folder. You will find this folder called connector J 8.0. Inside this connector J folder, you will find this file called MySQL connector J. You just have to copy this, copy, and you have to go back to your Eclipse project, and in this lib folder, which is under your webin folder, which is under your web app folder, you just have to right click and paste it here. Okay, your lib file is added. Okay, in the sense you are connecting your jar file to your package. Okay, and what is this jar file containing? It contains all the MySQL related libraries. In the sense, it contains all the MySQL related classes and interfaces. Where will you find it? You can also see it under libraries here. You expand libraries, and okay, if you don't see it, you just have to add it to your libraries. Let me show you how to do that. Right click your project, go to build path, configure build path, and here in the libraries section, select class path, and you can just choose this called add external jars. Okay, and you can just go to that location where your jar file is located, program x86, program files x86 MySQL, and here is the file. I'm selecting it, click open. It is added under the libraries, click apply and close. And you will find it under referenced libraries, and under referenced libraries you will find this jar file, and if you expand this jar file further, you will find the packages that are supplied by MySQL. Among them, one package is this com.mysql.cj.jdbc. This is the package I have typed here, com.mysql.cj.jdbc, and inside that package you have driver class, and that is the driver class that you are providing. Okay, let's collapse everything. Okay, now that your uh, driver class is added, what is the next step to do? We have to handle the exception. What is the exception? The exception is class not found exception. Okay, we are going to provide try catch. Okay, and I will be providing this try before the driver so that I can keep adding the other content inside the same try block. Okay, okay, this program is showing error for the simple reason that you are not returning anything. So let us satisfy the compiler, return false at the end for the time being, which we will correct it later. Okay, so now um, we have registered the driver, and then the next step is to connect to the database. Connect the database. So for that we have to make use of driver manager class, and on driver manager class you have to call get connection method. Okay, and you have to use this connection method where we have to supply three string values. Okay, and it is basically expecting three values of what. First one is the database URL, second one is the database username, the third one is the database password. Okay, so let us write down the variables which we are going to use in the place of these string parameters, string arguments. Okay, so I'm writing string db URL. We already know the DB URL. If you have already done your JDBC before, then it is JDBC colon MySQL, JDBC colon MySQL colon / localhost colon 3306, which is the port number for your MySQL, / you have to give your database name. In this case, I told you my database is user DB. Okay, so that is what I'm giving. And then next parameter that you have to supply is, let me supply DB URL here, DB URL, and then we have to supply the username of my database. So database user is, in my case it is root. Okay, and so I'm supplying DB user. Okay, and then the third one is database password, DB pass, and I have to supply that password. In my case it has the default password, which is tour. It is exactly not the default password. I have chosen that password as tour. Okay, so that is what we have to do. These are the three things: database URL, database username, and database password. All the three of the things we have to supply. But now it is giving another error. What is this error? It is another exception. It is a unhandled exception. As you can see, it is unhandled exception of type SQL exception. Okay, so for this what we will do, we can provide a separate try block, but it is of no use. It is already inside the try block, so we will just add one more catch block to this. So add catch clause. Okay, now our connecting with the database is done, but just connecting with the database is not enough. Why? Because we also need its return value. Get connection returns as a connection type. Okay, connection type, and that connection we have to save. So we will use connection. Let us call my con as my variable name to store it. And connection is available in which package? Okay, connection is available in java.sql package. Okay, so just let us import it. We have the connection object now. Okay, which is connecting, which is having an object related to the connection established with our database and the table. The database with the help of the username and password. Okay, and then this third step is to create a statement object. Okay, with which you can execute queries. Okay, so in this case we are performing uh, we are going to write a query which makes use of these two details. So let me first of all write the query so that we can work on it. Select star from user where email is equal to something and password is equal to something. This is exactly what we want to find out. Let me show you from my workbench. First of all, the data is available like this. Okay, let me write a query which only checks for one particular user. So I'm writing select star from user where email is equal to my email and password is equal to my password. Okay, I'm going to run this. What should happen? It is going to check for the email column whether this value is available or not, and password column whether this value is available or not, and it will retrieve this particular row. It should retrieve one row only. I'm running it and you see this is the result. Okay, so this is the exact query we are going to run, but we don't want this value to be fixed. Okay, we want this value to be dynamic based on what? Dynamic based on dynamic based on whatever user email that is supplied to this method, as well as whatever password that is supplied to this method. Okay, so for that we will be writing a query somewhat like this. Okay, so let us save this query in our string variable, string query, and within double quotes I am saving this query. Okay, and you have to be very careful about what is the column name you are choosing in both these conditions. Okay, it is very important that this column name and this column name matches with the column names in your database, in your table. Very important. Okay, so now that our query is ready, all we have to do is use that query to run the query. But to run the query, we need a statement object. What type of statement object? In databases, in JDBC, we have two types of statement objects. Most commonly used objects are to create two statement objects. One is statement directly, another one is prepared statement. Both statement and prepared statement are interfaces, as we know. Okay, but we need to get their objects so that we can make use of them. Okay, so in this particular case, because we don't know what this value is going to be, it is a dynamic value which is going to come from these two variables. We are going to make use of prepared statement. So let us create a prepared statement. Okay, so for that, let us say prepared statement. Okay, prepared statement has to be imported. Let us do one thing. We will import that whole SQL package. Okay, I'm using import java.sql.star so that it imports everything from SQL. Okay, and I'm using pstmt as my reference variable, and I am getting how can I get this prepared statement object? I can get it with the help of this mycon connection object. So I'll be using that icon dot. There is this method available called prepare statement. Prepare statement. Okay, this is the method that I have to use, prepare statement. This prepare statement method takes a query as a parameter so that it can create or it can prepare that prepared statement object. Okay, and we already have our query mentioned inside the query variable. So that query variable I'm writing here and semicolon. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are creating a prepared statement object on which we can perform the execution. Okay, then what we are going to do, next step is execute query and get the result. Okay, for this we have to perform a method called execute query. Okay, so on our prepared statement object pstmt dot execute query. Okay, I want you to observe that execute query method returns a result set. Okay, it returns a result set object. What is the meaning of the result set object? Result set object contains the data that is returned by the database when it is executing the query. Okay, that is what it means. So what does exactly it mean? If you check it in the workbench, when I executed this query, it has returned this as the result. So this can be considered as a result set. This data, this result that it is giving in the database, that is called the result set. Okay, and that result set will be returned back to our Java code when JDBC is executing this query with the help of prepared statement. So we are going to write that execute query. Okay, this execute query method, when it is executed, it returns as a result set object. Okay, when it returns as a result set object, we need to save it. So let us save it. Okay, we have saved the result set object, and now this result set object we are going to process to get the values out of it. Okay, but before executing result set or before executing the query at all, I want to check whether this query is properly created or not. Why? Because if this uh, query is not ready, not as per the MySQL requirements, then that query will not execute. If the query is not executing, then it will raise a SQL exception. If it raises an SQL exception, it will lead to execution getting stopped. Okay, so let us first of all test what the query holds. Okay, so how to test it? We can print query inside prepared statement. Okay, and how to do that? Plain old print statement, and inside this print statement I'm writing the information as prepared statement query is I want pstmt dot toString. Okay, I'm just accessing the string option or string representation of our prepared statement object. Okay, so I'm not running the execute query right now. I'm just verifying whether it is working or not. And for that, in our user DAO, temporarily I will provide a main method. Okay, and in my main method I just want to call this verify user. Okay, and supply the values. Let us say I'm supplying and password as I'm supplying. Okay, end it with a semicolon. What will happen? This method will be called and executed, and because I am having main method here, I can execute it as a normal Java application. And let us test with it whether it is working or not. I'm using Java application running. Okay, and in the console, okay, this is our console. Let us check what it is printing. Prepared statement query, and this is the prepared statement. But after that, the most important part is select star from user where email is double star not specified. Okay, it is telling it is not specified, password is not specified. If this kind of a query is sent to the database, it will not work. It will not work, guys. Okay, and so we have to do something else. Okay, what we have to do? Prepared statement is not ready for execution unless you have something else done. Okay, first of all, you have to create the prepared statement with the help of the query, but after that we also have to do something else. And what is that? Set the values for question mark placeholders in the query. So in the query, we have written question marks. Okay, question mark represent that they are blanks. Those blanks have to be filled by values. And because we know that we are using prepared statement whenever we want a dynamic query execution. That query has to keep changing based on what values that are supplied. Okay, that means it has to become a dynamic query. If it has to become a dynamic query, these placeholders, these blanks must be filled at the time of execution. Okay, and for that we have to make use of setter methods available in prepared statement. Okay, so you have to write pstmt, which is our prepared statement object, that is this one. Okay, dot, you have to make use of setter methods. Okay, what are these setter methods? These setter methods basically contains every for each data type of primitive data types as well as the string data type, it contains some setter method. So let me show you one setter method. Set string. Okay, set string takes two parameters. As you can see, set string method takes two parameters. The first one is integer, the second one is string. Okay, and what are they? The first parameter, okay, let me just type for your reference. The first parameters in integer is telling it is a parameter index. What is the meaning of parameter index? Here parameter means these things. These are parameters. The first parameter is, the first parameter index is 1, the second parameter index is 2, and so on. So first parameter means first question mark, second parameter means second question mark. Okay, so for this we will give 1 as the first parameter, and for the second parameter, for the first parameter, that means the first question mark, what value we want to assign. Okay, we want to assign what? We want to assign this value. Okay, but this value is not directly available in verify user method. What is happening? This value is supplied to verify user method as the first argument, and so user email variable of the first parameter will receive this value, and so this variable will contain this value, and we will be using this variable in the place of the second parameter of set string method. Okay, try to understand, guys, what is happening here. What is happening here? This value, okay, it is supplied in the place of this variable. Okay, and now this variable, this username variable, is used here. Okay, and that is how this value will be assigned to here. And so when we are writing set string, what will happen? This value called vikas@gmail.com will be assigned in the place of this question mark. Okay, so this value, whatever value is received via user email, this value will be assigned to this particular question mark. The same applies to the next step. In the next step, we will be writing something like this. We will be writing pstmt dot set string, and we will supply 2 comma password. Okay, when we write this, then what will happen? Then it will take this value, it will take this value, it will take this value, and this value will be supplied here by default. This was already supplied when the method is called. Okay, then what will happen? This value will be taken, and this value will be supplied here. Ignore this b, it is not, this is wrong. Okay, this password will be supplied here. When this is password, this password is supplied here. Here 2 represents the second question mark. Okay, 2 represents the second question mark, and so what will happen? This value, what is available in the password, which is this, okay, that value will be supplied to this question mark. Okay, and then the updated query will be created. Okay, that is the very important step. Let me show you what is happening. Okay, I'm going to write one more statement, pstmt dot set string, and I'm writing 2, which represents the second question mark, second parameter, and here I'm supplying password. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check whether what is the updated query. Okay, let me run this program once again using Java application, and let us check the result. Select star from user, where email is assigned with this value within single quotes and password is assigned with this value within single quotes, and these are the exact values I have given. I want you to observe, these are the exact values I have given here. This is the value, and this is the email value, and this is the password, which is the password assigned here. Okay, so this query has to be updated with the help of setter methods. Okay, then finally we have the query which can be executed by our MySQL server. Okay, cool. Let us hide this query for now, because anyway we don't want it to be printed on the console, but rather we want it to be executed in MySQL. And so let us enable this one. Okay, we are going to execute this query with the help of execute query method. It returns as a result set object. We have saved it, and once we have saved this result set object, what we are going to do is we are going to uh, check whether that result is created or not, whether that data is available or not. Okay, so as we know, this let us go back to